Hello everyone, this is Fadi. I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of this new series on Mount Sinai in Arabia. And today our dear brother Joel Richardson is going to continue with his compelling evidence to support the notion that this mountain that we've been talking about so far, and we've shown you a couple of images about, is the possible location, if not the location, of the real Mount Sinai. So today we're going to take a look at more evidence, especially supported by biblical passages, as to why Joel and myself combined here, we believe that this is the real deal. So, brother, thank you so much for being here. So, you've already talked about Midian, for instance, as one example, and you talked about other things related to that location. Now, what else do you have in your toolbox here that you'd like to share with our viewers as to why you believe that's the location of the real Mount Sinai?
Yeah, so we've talked about quite a lot. Now we're going to actually start looking at specific archaeological sites and petroglyphs and paintings and things like that around the mountain. So the first thing that I think has caught a lot of people's attention is what many people believe to be the split rock, the split rock of Moses, the rock that Moses himself struck with his staff and was split and then actually gave water to the people of Israel as they were thirsty. Yeah. So I want to start by reading a passage because, again, as Bible believers, the Bible is our most faithful account of what took place. Mm-hmm. And anything on the ground that we look at today, it has to align with the biblical criteria. So the first passage that I think is relevant is Exodus 17, 5 through 6. It says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Pass before the people, and take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand your staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock at Horeb. And you shall strike the rock, and water shall come out of it, that the people may drink.' And Moses did so in the sight of the elders of Israel." So let me just say this first before we get into this. Within the Exodus narrative, the covenant that was made between God and Israel at Mount Sinai, from a biblical perspective, it is patterned after a marriage or a betrothal ceremony. And so really in a mystical or a metaphorical way, the Exodus is a romance. God is wooing his people. And so the process of splitting the sea and killing Pharaoh and his soldiers, this is, for all intents and purposes, God is strutting, God is demonstrating his power, his mighty and outstretched hand, and he's quite literally killing the competition. When he splits the sea, it's kind of like, well, can your old boyfriend do this type of thing? And then he drowns the old boyfriend. Mm-hmm. But now that they're on the other side of the Red Sea, what we have is God demonstrating his ability not to be the strong one, but to be the provider, to be the compassionate God that loves his people, that provides for them water when they're thirsty, manna when they're hungry, quail. And, he's taking care of them and saying that he's not just this strong, powerful God, he's also compassionate. And so that's really what is happening here. But an interesting point when we look at this is the Lord says, "I'm going to stand before you there at the rock of Horeb." Now again, Horeb is simply another name for Sinai. Sinai, Horeb, essentially interchangeable. Now when you look at any place in this whole region, there's nothing but rocks. That's all there are rocks. There's millions upon millions of billions of rocks. So the Lord says, "I'm going to stand before you at the rock of Horeb." It's clear that whatever he was talking about was a widely recognized, well-known landmark. Everyone knew the rock of Horeb. This was not just another rock. This was a clear landmark, okay? And of course he strikes it and the water comes out. The next passage is Isaiah 48. So at the end of the chapter, Isaiah says, "They did not thirst when he led them through the deserts. The Lord made water to flow out of the rock for them. He split the rock and the water gushed." So the word there in the Hebrew is baka. Some translations, I think the King James says clave. He clave the rock. He split the rock. So we're looking for a prominent rock, a well-known, identifiable landmark that has been split. And then it says the water gushed forth. Again, arguably 1 million people. We don't know how many. There was a lot of people out there that needed to be, that were thirsty. Okay, so here's the first picture. As you're driving up to the rock, this is probably from 3/4 of a mile away.
Right.
You can see this thing. Now, from the bottom of this hill to the top of the rock is about 200 feet. Okay, so it is a massive rock.
Now, if you want to stop right here, as a geologist, I can show people, notice the top portion of the mountain is rocky, and notice the second half, the bottom half that looks reddish, that's sedimentation. It's almost like clay. This doesn't happen except when you have water flowing.
Exactly. Yeah, and these are the type of observations that they're easy to miss if you're not a geologist, you know. But there's another factor, too, which is probably worth mentioning. Here's another picture. And for what it's worth, you can see me down at the bottom of the base of the rock. The rock itself, just the rock, is 65 feet. Okay, so that's what, 20-some-odd meters.
Right.
This is 6 stories tall. This is a massive, massive rock. Now, here's the thing. It's what's called, it's granite. It's what's called rotten granite, which is to say it's fairly porous. But here's the thing. When you look at the rock itself, and again, people can reason through this who are not geologists, and the hill that it's sitting on, that's also granite. Mm-hmm. How did that get there? You know, in other words, like if the rock itself was some type of quartz, you could say, well, the granite that it's sitting on was it eroded over the years, and that was but somehow that thing got placed there. It's a very peculiar thing, you know.
In other words, what are the odds of finding this description matching the location and the shape of the rock?
Yeah, it's very unusual for sure. I mean, it would be like, even if it had no biblical significance, it's like Arches National Park or something. It's an unusual formation is the point. It matches the biblical criteria, and then indeed it is split from the top to the bottom. You can actually walk right up through it. In fact, we did. Many people have. And so it is split. It's been claved. So you have this incredibly strange landmark. It is the rock at Sinai. It's split down the middle. And then in the next picture, you can see this is at the base when you're standing up there. And again, to be clear, I'm not a geologist. Yep. But it really does look like you have massive water erosion.
Right. I mean, you look at these images of these layers, fine layers, look like shale, right? You know, it's almost like you're peeling these layers, and you get this when water is flowing in one direction. Usually, the heavy particles will settle first, and then the lighter one will continue down the stream.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And even when you're standing up there, it's hard to capture, but as you look down the hill, it's as though you can see the flow of where the water went. Obviously, it would have gone downhill, but it appears to be where you can see the flow of what once was water gushing out, and that's very unusual.
And it will look like a delta, right? You know, it starts with a tip of an angle, you know, like a triangle, and it starts getting wider and wider at the bottom.
Exactly, exactly. It's fascinating. So now here's another portion of what we should be looking for, because when Israel got to the area where the split rock is, and this is just kind of to the northwest of the mountain itself. So to drive there, it's actually quite a ways from the part of the mountain where they were at the base of the mountain when God appeared. This is on the other side, but this is a place the Bible calls Rephidim. Okay, so in Exodus 17, it says, then Amalek, that's the Amalekites, came and fought against Israel at Rephidim. So it's actually where the split rock was that Israel fought against the Amalekites. There was a great battle that took place there. Again, we don't know if there was 1 million people or a few 100,000 Israelites and how many Amalekites, but there was a great battle. Choose for us and go fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will station myself on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Joshua did as Moses told him, and he fought against Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur, they went up on top of the hill. So there has to be a very tall hill in the vicinity of all of this, and there has to be an area big enough for there to be a massive battle.
And a valley for the battle, or at least plain for the battleground.
Exactly. So it came about when Moses held up his hands. We know the story. They had to hold his hands up all night. So here's just a picture that I got from Google Maps. The red dot, of course, is where the split rock is. And you can see there's a massive plain around it. And really, this doesn't do it justice. This plain is about 1.5 miles at the narrow points across, and several miles from one end to the other. It's a massive, massive area. In fact, when we were there, I looked across this plain, and there was an SUV parked on the other side. You could barely see it. Okay, so you have this area that's big enough for there to have been such a massive battle. I'm going to actually jump back a few slides and see the hills, these massive hills. You could even say they're mountains all around the rock. You have exactly, again, if this is the area, if this is what the Bible describes, everything lines up perfectly.
Right.
So it's fascinating. I mean, there's a lot there, and this is what you find when you're there. And the more that you think about it, as you said, notice the sedimentation. The more that you think about it, the more that you observe, everything just lines up. It falls into place. Nothing is forced. It's just hand in glove. It matches, and you go, either there are an awful lot of coincidences here, or this is it. This is the location.
Now, I want to just point something interesting here. In John chapter 7, the Lord, during one of the ceremonies that are done to commemorate this incident, he stood himself and says, I am basically the water of life. And he who comes to me will not thirst. And I will cause rivers to basically gush or come out of their belly or from within, obviously. And it's interesting, when the Lord asked Moses to do this, is I will stand before you, right? And so technically the water is God's water gushing out basically through the rock. And of course, the Bible tells us that Jesus is the rock, So these are kind of interesting observations as well.
Yeah, I mean, and think about this again. I love Israel. I love going to Israel. I know so many people go, it changes their life. But Israel has been developed over the years. It's been inhabited. So you go to these places, you say, this is where Paul the Apostle did some particular miracle, or where he spoke, or where Jesus did a miracle. Okay, it's all fascinating, but for the most part, most of it has been built upon. The thing about what we have out here in Saudi Arabia is this is not, if you think about this, you think about if this is the real thing, and honestly, I believe it is. You think this is not some place where God did a miracle. You're looking at the miracle itself.
That's right, yeah.
And not only that, but the Lord has purposefully caused the world to forget about this. He placed it on a pedestal. He placed it on a pedestal for the whole world to see. He's preserved it. It's just sitting there. And he says, oh, and by the way, it's split down the middle. It represents Christ. I mean, it's this living testimony concerning his miracles, concerning prophetically what it represents, who was broken for us. And as you said, out of you will come rivers of living water. Right. I am the source of this living water, as the Lord provided for them in the first Exodus. Right. It's an amazing thing. It's awe-inspiring in a profound way.
That's fascinating, brother, and very compelling. So for the next episode, what are we to expect?
So we're going to jump into the actual mountain itself, where Israel camped when they were at the base of the mountain. We're going to continue to go through these various evidences, and we'll jump into, I think we'll hit a couple of them in the next episode.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, brother. As always, people can go, of course, to Joel's website, joelstrumpet.com, and you wrote a book related to this very mountain.
Yep, it's called Mount Sinai in Arabia, and I just released a brand new book called Sinai to Zion, the untold story of the triumphant return of Jesus.
Which we would love to do also a show or two, or maybe even a couple of videos on that as well. So thank you, brother, as always. Thank you for all of you for joining us here. Continue to send us your comments and interactions, and we will do our best to reply back to you or to your questions. As always, thank you so much. God. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. We can't make these quality videos without the help of partners like you. So please consider becoming a Patreon supporter today at patreon.com/CIRA International. I want to make sure you always get notified when we release a new video. So please click the bell to be notified, and of course, make sure to subscribe to this channel. If this video was helpful to you, please click the thumbs up. Thank you.